The day was July 31st, 1954, and the roar of Onofre Marimon's Maserati 250F echoed through the Nürburgring, a track infamous for its unforgiving nature. It was a day of high stakes, with Marimon determined to shave precious seconds off his qualifying time. With his heart thumping in his chest and his blood racing with anticipation, he sat in the cockpit with determination to get as far as his Maserati would take him. Everything was going right until it wasn't. Onofre Agustin Marimon's story begins on December 19, 1923, in the quiet town of Zarate, Buenos Aires, Argentina. Born to a racer dad, Marimon picked up the passion for speeding cars and tracks right from the womb. His father was none other than Domingo Marimon, a man whose name roared through the circuits as a celebrated racing driver. Domingo's crowning moment came in 1948 when he claimed victory in the South American Grand Prix for Turismo Carretera. With ties in the racing world, Domingo raced with the likes of Juan Manuel Fangio, the first great F1 driver and five-time world champion, as teammates. Fangio would then go on to serve as a mentor for young Marimon. The young boy wasn't just into racing because it was expected of him. He was different. Marimon was very much in love with the sport, and with Fangio as his mentor, he had all the necessary tools to be a terrific Formula One driver. When he was 13, he once pushed his father's two-seater racer out of the garage. He then fired the car up just to see how fast it could go. Proud of this rebellious feat, he happily told his mother that he was able to get the vehicle to racing speed, but his mother wasn't as happy as she smashed a plate on his head to teach him a lesson never to try out something that dangerous again. No amount of chiding could dampen his determination. Before he even turned 17, he made his racing debut, piloting a self-prepared car on a makeshift circuit in the quiet suburbs of Cosquín. Marimon didn't just show up. He finished second. But his racing dreams would soon hit a pause, as World War II brought everything to a halt. With spare parts scarce, the roar of engines fell silent. When the dust of war finally settled, racing roared back to life, and so did he. Competing in small, local events, Marimon began honing his skills. Then came a twist of fate in 1949. His father suffered a broken collarbone just before the Vuelta de Mar del Plata, a grueling 536-mile open-road race for Turismo Carretera cars. With no one else to turn to, the young Marimon stepped in, taking the wheel of their Chevrolet Coupe. Against all odds, he crossed the finish line first, grabbing headlines and proving his mettle. By 1950, Marimon was back for more, this time at the two-leg Vuelta de Córdoba, a punishing 1,068-mile journey through flatlands and treacherous mountain roads. On the first day, he fearlessly went head-to-head with the legendary Juan Galvez, staking his claim as a serious contender. By the return leg, Marimon was leading the pack, but racing is as much about grit as it is about luck. Just shy of the finish, the car's engine gave out. Still, the ever-optimistic Marimon wasn't discouraged. Every mile, every setback was a lesson, and he was learning fast. With dreams of single-seater glory glimmering on the horizon, Marimon's big break came through a family connection. His father's friendship with none other than Juan Manuel Fangio opened the door. Fangio, heading to Europe for his debut season with Alfa Romeo in 1950, left his Chevrolet Wayne-powered Volpe single-seater in Domingo's care. As the season opener approached in La Cumbre, Domingo proposed a challenge to his son. Whoever set the fastest time in practice would race the car. Marimon seized the opportunity, not only claiming pole position, but also securing his first Mecánica Nacional victory. It was a defining moment. More wins followed, catching the attention of the Automobile Club Argentino. By the end of the season, they handed Marimon the keys to a Maserati 4CLT for the Paraná race. Fangio won that day, but Marimon's fourth-place finish was a triumph in itself. His second outing in the Maserati, just 5 weeks later in Chile, ended in disappointment when the car retired. But setbacks weren't new to Marimon. They were just part of the learning curve. In the early months of 1951, Marimon kept the momentum going with the Volpe, earning a win and 2 second-place finishes. Fangio suggested it was time for Marimon to spread his wings. An exploratory trip to Europe was arranged, and with Fangio's connections, Marimon landed a seat in a Maserati 4CLT Milano. His first Grand Prix, the French Grand Prix, was a trial by fire. A broken engine brought his World Championship debut to an abrupt end, but Marimon pressed on. That season, he continued racing in Europe, facing a mix of challenges. At the iconic Le Mans 24 Hours, he shared a Talbot Lago with Gonzalez but didn't finish the race. At Modena, driving a privately entered Ferrari, he battled setbacks in the pits yet still managed to finish 8th. In 1952, Marimon stayed closer to home, focusing his efforts in Argentina. Behind the wheel of the trusty Volpi, he continued to dazzle, narrowly missing out on the Meccanica Nacional title in the final round. But racing wasn't his only focus that year. A true family man, Onofre balanced his passion for speed with his responsibilities at home. With a wife and 2 children depending on him, he also took steps toward a stable future, opening a car dealership to provide for his growing family. Beyond his own household, Marimon's kindness extended to the children in his town. Whenever he returned from trips abroad, he'd bring books and toys for those less fortunate, spreading joy and hope in his community. Still, the lure of international competition beckoned. Throughout much of that year, Marimon worked behind the scenes, preparing for a grand return to Europe. By the year's end, his efforts paid off. He secured a works-assisted drive with Maserati for 1953, setting the stage for his first full season abroad. The 1953 season had a bit of glimmer as his mentor Fangio was to be racing with him in a Maserati car as his teammate. He got his first podium finish at his first race of the season in Belgium. Unable to keep up the track for the remainder of the year, which was marred with a bunch of early retired races, Marimon decided the 1954 season might actually be his year. But unknown to him, the year was darkened by a gloomy cloud. The first 3 races were not so good as they were all DNFs, but fortune was again at his side at the British Grand Prix, where he clinched another podium finish, the second of his career. Although the Maserati transporter arrived late at Silverstone for the British Grand Prix, which made them forfeit the qualifying, Marimon still finished strong, though he started at the back of the grid. He even shared the fastest lap with his mentor Fangio and 5 other drivers. Excited that things were finally looking up, Marimon's hope was raised for the next race, which was the German Grand Prix. With a total of 8 1/7 championship points to his name, Marimon contributed significantly to Maserati's standing in the racing world. But his talent wasn't limited to the championship series. In that same year, he claimed a commanding victory at the non-championship Rome Grand Prix. Armed with a podium finish and a Grand Prix win, Marimon was ready for the next racing tracks, which took place at Nürburgring in Germany. This was his favourite circuit, because he just loved how it reminded him of the rolling nature of the road circling Cosquín. Marimon's Friday lap times showed promise, placing him on the 3rd row of the provisional grid. Yet the perfectionist in him wasn't satisfied. He was frustrated by being 10 seconds shy of breaking the elusive 10-minute mark. Seeing his disappointment, Fangio suggested they run in tandem the next day. The idea was simple. By following Fangio, Marimon could refine his cornering lines and shave precious seconds off his time. But Marimon got way too excited and was really pumped to start. So the next morning he didn't wait for Fangio to join him on the track. His father, Domingo, watched from the pits, stopwatch in hand, timing each lap as his son roared past. Everything was going fine, and he was quickly gaining ground. When Fangio arrived at the circuit, he was shocked to see Marimon on the tracks because he had asked him to wait. Marimon was not just excited to start the race, though. The weather was looking like it would rain any time, and he was trying to finish the practice before it did. His driving was strong, and his father knew Marimon had what it takes. However, on the 3rd lap, tragedy struck. About 5 miles from the pits, just as he approached the Breitscheid curve near the Adenau Bridge, the challenge of the Nürburgring revealed its teeth. The steep downgrade demanded precision, but Marimon pushed harder, chasing the edge of perfection. In a tragic twist, control slipped from his grasp as he failed to navigate a sharp turn at the bottom. His Maserati veered off course, plunging into a treacherous incline. Unable to regain the control he just lost, Marimon could only watch in shock as the car struck a ditch, colliding with a tree before rolling violently. The Maserati 250F's once pristine body was now contorted by the crash. When the dust settled, the Maserati lay on its roof, its wheels spinning helplessly in the air. Marimon was pinned beneath the wreckage. Onlookers rushed to help, but the scene was grim. Marimon was trapped inside, his chest crushed against the steering wheel. Meanwhile, his father, who was waiting by the sidelines, began to feel uncomfortable when he didn't see his son after 10 minutes. Domingo felt something was wrong and began to run towards the scene. Fangio was also feeling uneasy from the pits. He and another driver of the team, Roberto Mieres, expected Marimon to show up at the pits, but after waiting and not seeing him, Fangio immediately told Mieres to drive around to look for Marimon. Jose Froilan Gonzalez, an Argentinian driver, like Fangio and Marimon, saw some disturbing track marks while practicing, but he didn't pay mind to it till he heard on the speaker that Marimon had crashed. He immediately took a Ferrari car and rushed to the scene, but something was baffling to him. The car was stuck on fourth gear. Meanwhile, that particular area was a third gear corner. Despite the rescue workers' desperate efforts to right the car and free him, Marimon's injuries were critical. He was alive for just 5 minutes. A priest, who happened to be nearby, administered the last rites as the young racer desperately clung to life. Moments after being pulled from the wreckage, the young racer succumbed to his injuries. The whispers of the Nürburgring spoke of a possible mechanical failure, a braking unit that may have sealed Marimon's fate. The passing of Onofre Marimon marked the first fatality at a World Championship Formula One Grand Prix. Onofre Marimon will always be remembered as a fearless driver who dared to chase his dreams, but it was cut short before he even fully realized it. Do you think this accident could have been avoided? Let us know what you think in the comments below.